The spring sun was spilling gold across Washington D.C.'s National Mall. Cherry blossoms drifted in the breeze like pink snow, and laughter echoed from a nearby park where families enjoyed the first warm Saturday of the season. But on the steps of the Veterans Memorial Center, a man sat quietly on a bench, broad-shouldered, tanned, and wearing a faded green flight jacket that read U.S. Navy, retired. That man was Ethan Cole, a single dad, former Navy pilot, and a quiet survivor of too many nights overseas. Beside him, his 6-year-old daughter Mia was eating an ice cream cone, her freckled cheeks glowing under the sun. "Daddy, why don't you ever smile when planes fly by?" she asked softly as a helicopter buzzed in the distance. Ethan's lips tightened into something that tried to be a smile. "Because, sweetheart, sometimes even the sky can remind you of things you've lost." Just then, a convoy of black SUVs rolled up the path. Out stepped Admiral Rebecca Hayes, one of the highest-ranking officers in the Navy, known for her sharp wit and iron discipline. Today she wasn't here on duty but attending a veterans charity event. Her uniform gleamed in the sunlight, and her presence drew quiet admiration. Ethan didn't notice her at first. He was too busy helping Mia wipe melted ice cream off her chin. But Rebecca noticed him, the posture, the quiet strength, the jacket. She walked over, her polished shoes clicking against the pavement. "Excuse me," she said, smiling warmly. "You look like you've logged a few hours in that uniform. What's your call sign, pilot?" It was meant as a lighthearted greeting, something Navy personnel often asked each other. But when Ethan lifted his head and met her eyes, Rebecca's expression changed instantly. "Viper 1, he said quietly. Her hands froze midair. She knew that name. Every officer did. Viper 1 was a call sign spoken with respect and sorrow. The pilot who'd stayed behind on a doomed rescue mission in Afghanistan so his team could escape. The one they thought had never come back. Rebecca took a step closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "You're that Viper 1? Ethan gave a small, humble nod. "Used to be. Now I'm just a dad trying to keep up with a first grader." The silence between them deepened. Then Mia, completely unaware of the weight in the air, giggled and offered Rebecca her half-eaten ice cream. "Do you want some?" Rebecca knelt down, eyes glistening. "No, sweetie, you keep it. You've got a good man for a dad." What started as a simple joke, a casual question, had turned into a moment that no one around would ever forget. Later, as the charity event began, Rebecca found herself scanning the crowd for Ethan again. There was something about the way he carried himself, quiet strength mixed with a weariness that only true heroes carried. But she also saw something else. The way Mia's small hand slipped into his, how his eyes softened every time she laughed. And for the first time in a long while, the admiral who had seen wars and oceans and command decks realized she was witnessing something far greater than duty. She was witnessing kindness. The next week, Ethan was back at his job driving a veterans shuttle bus around the city, picking up retired servicemen, helping them reach hospitals or community centers. The pay wasn't great, but the purpose kept him steady. Mia often rode along, sitting proudly in the front seat, handing out snacks to the passengers. "My daddy helps heroes," she'd say. One afternoon, as they pulled up to the Naval Medical Center, Ethan was surprised to see Admiral Hayes waiting outside. Her presence immediately drew attention. Soldiers saluted. Civilians whispered. But she waved them off and stepped up into Ethan's bus. "Permission to ride along, Viper 1? She said, half smiling. Ethan chuckled. "Only if you don't pull rank." They drove through the city together, talking about life after service, about how hard it was for soldiers to find peace once the noise stopped. Ethan spoke about losing his wife 2 years earlier in a car accident and how Mia had become his reason to keep going. Rebecca listened quietly, her usual composure softening. "You know," she said, "I've been searching for people who could help with a new veterans outreach program. Someone who understands what it means to rebuild. You'd be perfect for it." Ethan hesitated. "Admiral, I'm no leader anymore." "Wrong," she said firmly. Leadership isn't about medals. It's about heart, and yours is still in the fight. Over the next few weeks, they worked together on the project. They organized job fairs, arranged counseling sessions, and even restored an old helicopter for display in a city park as a tribute to fallen pilots. But the real challenge wasn't the work. It was Ethan learning to let others back into his world. He had built walls tall and silent. Yet every time Rebecca showed up, with coffee, with laughter, with patience, those walls cracked a little more. One evening, as the sun set over the Potomac River, they stood watching the restored helicopter gleam in gold light. Mia ran around it, her laughter echoing like music. "You know," Rebecca said softly, "when I first saw you at the memorial, I thought fate was playing a joke on me." Ethan smiled. "And now I think it was giving me a second chance to understand what real courage looks like." He looked at her for a long moment, the admiral who once commanded fleets, now speaking like a friend who had found peace. Sometimes kindness wasn't a grand act. Sometimes it was simply showing up and staying. Months passed. The outreach program grew beyond expectation. Veterans across the state were finding jobs, families were reconnecting, and hope had started to bloom where silence once lived. Ethan had become a quiet hero again, not for what he did in war, but for what he gave in peace. On the anniversary of the helicopter rescue mission, the one that gave him the name Viper 1, Rebecca organized a small ceremony at the park. Dozens of veterans gathered around the memorial, candles flickering in the twilight. When she called Ethan to the podium, he shook his head modestly. "I don't do speeches," he murmured. "Then just speak from the heart," she whispered. He took a breath. "I used to think bravery was about what you do when people are watching. But real bravery," he said, glancing at Mia in the front row, "is getting up every morning when life feels heavy, and choosing to be kind anyway." The crowd fell silent. Even the city seemed to pause. After the ceremony, Rebecca handed Mia a small pin, a silver emblem shaped like wings. "For your daddy," she said, smiling softly. "And for the hero who reminds us all that kindness can still fly." Mia pinned it proudly to Ethan's jacket. "Now you're shiny again, Daddy." He laughed, a sound he hadn't made in years. As night fell, the helicopter lights glowed softly in the park. The wind rustled the flags, and somewhere above, a real chopper hummed faintly as if saluting one of its own. Rebecca turned to him. "You changed a lot of lives, Viper 1. Ethan shook his head. "No, Admiral. We did." And as the stars came out, two soldiers, one who had fought to survive and one who had fought to lead, stood quietly side by side, bound not by rank or mission, but by a single act of kindness that had changed everything. Dear viewers, this story reminds us that sometimes the smallest gestures can rewrite the heaviest chapters of a person's life. A smile, a word, a helping hand. They cost nothing, yet they can save everything. If you believe that kindness still has power in this world, please share this story. Like this video if it touched your heart. Comment below about the kindest thing someone has ever done for you. Subscribe to our channel, Kindness Quest, for more real, emotional stories that prove compassion still wins. Let's keep the world brave, gentle, and kind, one story at a time.